Hello, everybody. Welcome to the video, the second one total, but the first Moto Adept Monday. So here it is. Welcome to the videos. This is basically what this channel is going to be, at least on Mondays, and then every other day, or I guess every day other than Monday, will be just different types of videos. I'm going to test them and experiment with a few things, but yeah, welcome onto the train, and let's get into it. So first, I do want to take a little dive into the heats because that is what this Moto Mondays or Moto in depth Mondays are really about. It's about kind of the breakdown of the race and the night, and I think that we want to talk about the first 250 heat right off the bat. I think that Volan looked, awesome. I don't think you guys know. I am a fan of Volan because he grew up 20 minutes from my house, basically 20 minutes. Just he grew up around here, around where I live. So big fan of the guy. Did really well at Hangtown actually last year as well, or at least started well. So yeah, it was really cool. He kept fighting. I think he showed a glimpse or two of what he can be in the future. He just needs to pick up on a little bit more raw speed, and I think that his technique looks good. It just looks a bit stale. He's really good at everything that he needs to be really good at, but I think that there's a few things that he can add to his technique or program that can really help him out. I'm not saying corner speed's an issue. I'm just saying that it's pretty average. A lot of things about his riding is just average, and I feel like he has the potential to go up and over, and especially with the way that his mind works, you can tell he's in the right spot about guessing what the guy behind him is going to do. Reminds me a lot of Cooper Webb in that in that instance and kind of that situation. If you put him into the right spot, he can control a race for a good 3.5 minutes with pressure not even a second behind him. Say a guy is zero point 0.8 seconds behind him, he knows the right line to take, and I think that's all that you really need to know. And then he uncorked that quad no one else was doing. Right after the finish line, there's these 4 jumps, and a lot of people are going triple and then single into that little flat stretch right there. But Volan decided to quad, and I was waiting to see a 450 guy just quad inside and kind of like slow it down. I feel like that would have been like really fast, but didn't end up seeing it. A lot of guys were just quadding into that berm and locking off, and it wasn't much faster. But it was cool to see that he kind of had the cojones to pull it off at least. So I thought that was pretty cool. And then in the first heat as well, there was a guy that goes by the name Matt Moss, number 100, was rocking on that Bar X Suzuki team. A fill-in ride. He's 35 years old, Australian guy. I think he was like an 8-time champion in Australia or something stupid like that. Great rider. Comes out at 35, and oh my god, he looks super good. Really happy for that. I don't know. It was just something that looked good. And then I'm not a big fan of RJ Hampshire. I'm not gonna lie. But despite the injury, he looked great. I think that he is the second best rider out there at the moment. I think he's got that Husqvarna hooking up for sure. And in that first heat, we saw the track probably at its prime, freshly groomed. We saw the whoops play a big role later in the night, and that's because they broke down over so much time. And in that first race, in my opinion, that's the one you wanted. A lot of the time, you want the second heat, and then like the first 450 heat. So 450 heats don't really matter, but if you're in the 250 class, you want the second heat most of the time, I feel like. But in this track, I would have preferred the first if I were, to be riding out there. I'm not really much of a rider myself, but I know the sport, the ins and the outs of the sport, whatever. I feel like I've got pretty good, knowledge or something like that. And then Levi Kitchen, we're gonna talk about his really good result. He came up early. That's for sure. He came out early and off the start was horrible. I think he's buried. Was about 11th, not halfway through, but a little bit of the way through. And then just put on a good charge, came up, and really showed what he can be like, and that's pretty cool. And then we can move on to heat number 2. Enzo Lopes is a heat race warrior. That's something I have a little written down right there. Enzo Lopes is a heat race warrior. Haven't really seen him show up in the main start wise. He's started well in like all the heats. He's been really good, and when it comes to main event times, just not really that great. To be honest, his starts really aren't there in the main event, and I think that's just because you got like 2 times the guys in the heat that are a little bit better. So Enzo Lopes definitely has some potential, and I think if you can put on some consistency and then a little bit more of not really. He doesn't really not play defense, but he needs to probably hold his position a little bit better, in my opinion. But Jet McAdoo was really exciting out early, number 1 and 2, and McAdoo actually kept Jet behind him for a little bit. But how much of that is Jet just trying to not make a mistake or something like that? So can't really tell. But they were making mistake after mistake. Don't get me wrong. I think that a lot of the first heat jitters for them we're definitely coming out on a tough track, a tough and technical track. The first time you're out there in race time, it's not qualifying, it's not free practice, it's the first race of the night on a technical track. Everything's groomed, everything's different. It's tough to get timing down. It is tough to gauge how fast you need to go for three different things in one section. You saw two really long rhythm sections tonight, and I think a lot of that had to come with that. But McAdoo looked really poised and composed, just with Jet right behind him, and you could tell Jet was trying a little harder than McAdoo was. McAdoo did not want to push any issue, but McAdoo looked very comfortable, and that's something I felt like just saying. And then Jet makes the pass for first, and then just checked out as expected. It's kind of what RJ did early with Max Volan. So two like reoccurring things, and then we'll move on to the 450s. Go to Heat 1, and Ken Roxon. Loved the way that he was riding. He was very, very good. I don't think was it whole shot. It could have been whole shot to finish. He was solid. I'm not going to say he was great. I'm not going to say he was better than any other guy in there. Jason Anderson probably could have won that, despite a few things holding him back. Probation and Justin Barsha. I think that he was riding super defensively with Justin Barsha behind him. He didn't really get to take the line of choice because he knew Barsha might go for his head there, for his neck. So, yeah, it was a bit tough to kind of tell how hard Jason Anderson was trying, but he was definitely trying to keep Justin Barsha off the backside of him because, I mean, the way that he was riding, even on that first lap with Barsha right there, he knew it was Barsha behind him. He cuts halfway through the corner after the big Supercross triple, after that really long section. So he knew immediately, and he just started to ride super defensively, and it kind of slowed him down. In a way, he didn't really get to take the line of choice, so especially in the corners and whatnot. He was cutting down a lot more. He was closing off the outside. He was really making sure he was taking that inside or advantage line, I guess you could say. But when Barsha fell off about 2 seconds of Jason Anderson, he closed in on Kenny, but Kenny was too good, in my opinion. He looked solid, like I said, and it just looked too consistent to really put, to really hit. We'll hit on the probation as well here. The probation from Jason Anderson, is it deserved? Probably. Okay, but after tonight, you better consider one for Justin Barsha if he makes a wild move next weekend. That is for sure. I think that Jason, we'll hit on Justin Barsha later, but Jason Anderson in this probation, it's not controversial. I think that it is completely okay. But I mean, he's been such a different rider this year, and I think everyone talks about it. I think that he's taken himself out of a championship spot early. He's really gonna have to work his behind off to work back up to those guys. So it'll be interesting to see how that all works out with the probation. He's got it for 6 more months, so he'll have to strap in and get comfortable where he's at, and try not to make anything too questionable, or we could see a hiccup or two more from Jason Anderson. But move on to heat number 2 here as well. KTM 1 and 2. Aaron Plessinger and Cooper Webb out front. Coop whole shots for the first time in a while. I don't feel like I've seen Coop have these good of starts these last couple of rounds. Since back then. So Cooper Webb was definitely out early. But I do want to hit on Tomac's bike. When that first heat race started, and in qualifying, that bike looked like the best on the track. That bike had nothing wrong with it. He was charging every whoop. The Dragon's back, he was better and faster than anyone, easily. And then that second whoop section, oh my God, he was flying. He's just flying across through there. It was absurd to see how well he was doing there. For sure, it is ridiculous what that bike was looking like in the first, little bit of that heat and all through qualifying and whatnot. Unfortunately, I do think he was one of the fastest guys in qualifying, if not the fastest, but unfortunately just kept having a little mistake or like something that took half a second off his lap, and he was mad because of it. So yeah, he'd have like a great lap going, and then in the last 4 or 5 sections, he'd see himself, kind of slip up, do something that cost him half a second. Doesn't really ride his lap to the fullest. I think his ideal lap time, if you guys don't know what that is, take sectors of the track, take the best sector that you had from each sector, if that makes any sense. It'd add up to be the best, but I don't think that's it. And I think that Plessinger really showed that he was win ready tonight in that heat, at least. I think I passed by Eli Tomac early, and he did not give up. Did not give up. He was there the whole time. He was still showing a front wheel. He was still looking savvy with the lines until he wasn't. And I think that's his biggest concern is once he realizes he can't get past, he doesn't quit, but he doesn't push anymore. I feel like it's smart by him, but it's a little not time consuming or anything like that, but it just is a little laid back from him, and I would expect him to really attack harder. But early in that heat, we saw Webb in first, Sexton in second, and Tomac in third. It was really fun to see the top three guys reverse order of the point standings out there, and then let's just show them the best passing sequence I've ever seen. That was the coolest thing I've ever seen. Sexton has a great block pass on Cooper, gives him just enough room to not fall, but has to jump the rest of the Dragon's back. And then Tomac comes in, spur of the moment, flies inside of the Dragon's back, still connects perfectly with the corner, pops up, jumps from, like, say this is the corner right here. So right here he goes up, he was like about to corner, and then he goes straight, and then actually drops down and still hits those whoops pretty perfectly. So it was still really, really cool. And then we saw the first lap that Sexton was behind Tomac. Sexton followed Tomac's lines 1-for-1 for the whole lap. It was crazy. I don't think I've ever seen Chase Sexton do anything like that. Normally, he is the type of guy to figure himself out, and he sticks to his speed. But he wanted to see what Eli Tomac was doing. And I think that's really important because of the way that Eli Tomac was doing and the way that his bike was hooking up. It wasn't the Tomac lines. It was the Tomac's bike. And we saw Sexton do the exact same lines and lose about a second and a half. So it is what it is. You can't really, hit on that too much there. But I guess, yeah, let's head into the 250 main now. I have plenty of notes here for these 450 and 250 main events. McAdoo and Jet Hampshire. Wait, McAdoo, Jet, and Hampshire all start in the top three. I thought that was really cool. Saw a lot of action early in this one. We saw we didn't see a lot. We saw a lot of results early. We didn't have to see anyone actually like pull from behind and make a good move. We didn't see Jet start 7th, work his way back up into 3rd, and then the last 5 minutes of the main event, he somehow makes up 8 seconds on the leader and whatnot. And so it was really cool to see that just we had the top guys out early with Pierce Brown up there, Max Volan, all the factory guys got a good start, except Levi Kitchen. I think he was pretty down there. But RJ goes down. It was fine. He wasn't pushing the issue or anything. He just lost the rut, I guess. I'm not sure really what to say about that. He just went down. It's not that traditional for a guy like him. It's just an uncommon mistake. But we've seen RJ in this spot before, especially in outdoors, where he has a good thing going and then crashes out of it. So not new. And then Pierce Brown was actually pretty fast tonight. The way that he looked was, I'll hit on this later, like down a little bit when we get into his crashes. But Pierce Brown was definitely moving. He had the fastest lap in the first, I think, 5 or 6 laps. So he was hooking up early for sure. And then, Kitchen, I said, had a quietly good ride and fought, Volan about halfway through the main event. He had a good fight with Volan after moving all the way back up there. And then Enzo Lopes was quick, but he just can't get that start in the main event like I hit on earlier. He just can't get that start. If he had that start, he'd potentially be a top 5 guy, but we consistently have to see him come from about 10th, 8th, 9th, somewhere around there, maybe even 11th. And he has to work his way up, ends up being a 7th or 6th place guy. It's just not really, I don't know. I can't say it's not good because it's Enzo Lopes. He's on the FXR Yamaha crew. I'm not saying it's a bad team, but the FXR Makov Yamaha team isn't factory. And so to see a guy like Lopes consistently putting up good stuff, it's really fun because you just don't see it from a non-factory team. So I really think he has a chance, and imagine he got the push from a factory team. That'd be something I would want to watch for sure. But Jet, after RJ went down, Jet makes the pass in for first, just kind of moved around RJ as he was sitting in second. Opportunity presented itself and just went and kind of started checking out early. It wasn't much of a competition at all. What was interesting, though, was Pierce Brown closed in on McAdoo with about 4 minutes to go. Pierce makes a desperate move. He looked desperate. And it was really weird. He was like trying to be Tomac, but Cameron McAdoo almost sensed it. So he goes outside, actually. And then a really desperate move. He had about probably, I don't know, 0.9 seconds, I'd say. And then Pierce Brown comes up the inside. And so McAdoo's already like this. He's turning down now. And Pierce Brown gives him a nice little block pass. And then Cam kind of checks up, puts his front wheel towards the left side of the berm to make sure his back wheel doesn't collide with his front. So he can get out scotch-free. Has a way better whoop section than Pierce Brown. And then gives him a nice block pass back. Pierce was not happy with that. Watched some things later that night, and he said that McAdoo can expect one back, which is ridiculous considering you already gave him one first. You started it. That was a pretty desperate block pass, if you ask me. And McAdoo wasn't happy with that. Block pass right back, except this time he did it right. So, yeah, I'm a heavy McAdoo supporter. I'm not trying to ruffle any feathers out there. If I am, I understand Pierce Brown is a good rider. Unlucky. He's just, I'll hop on that later. All right, we'll get onto that. But after Pierce goes down, he gets up right in front of Levi Kitchen, not too far, not too quick before that. Levi Kitchen hops in front of Pierce, actually. So, yeah, it was good. I mean, you saw Pierce kind of get up, and then Levi passed him right there. So, Pierce was in front of him. Levi passed him, maybe a little bit up in his head about it, and then ended up. Let's talk about Pierce's racecraft. Well, we're on the subject, right? Pierce Brown and his racecraft. He has none. He doesn't have any. It's just right there. He pushes so hard, and he's a fast kid, and he can move to the inside of people if the line presents itself. But he's not up there with any of the top guys in racecraft, in my opinion. He has no sense of where's the right move. He kind of just tries a whole bunch of things, pushes the issue, makes a mistake, and screws himself. People say he's unlucky. He does it to himself most of the time. I understand he's had some unlucky times and some close calls. But, I mean, the more and more you look at it and the more and more you think about it, Pierce Brown put himself in everything tonight. It wasn't Cameron McAdoo taking Pierce Brown's race away. It was Pierce Brown taking Pierce Brown's race away. It's just that simple. Pierce was not a solid guy. I mean, he's got the speed for sure. He's up there with the speed. He's probably not on RJ's level, not quite there yet, but he's probably the top 3 fastest guys in this class. But I think on the right track, with the right conditions with your body and whatnot, McAdoo obviously was a little banged up this weekend, but it's still hard to gauge. Top 5 guy for sure, but I don't know. It just consistently screws him over how unaware he is, I guess, of the other lines on the track. He goes for the fast lines and expects it to work for a pass, and it's not exactly gone that way for him. Pierce Brown just isn't that techie. He's not that savvy. He's not that. He doesn't move around, I guess. He kind of just, I don't know. It's hard to explain, but when you just say racecraft, I think that's what happens. That's just what he's bad at, is his racecraft. It's not good. I think that's where I'll just leave that. Then Levi has the capability of being a top 3 guy right now. If you look at the way Levi Kitchen has ridden these past couple of weeks that he's been riding, of course, he wins that Triple Crown due to consistent finishes and Jet not having a good night. But he won. He was better than, RJ Hampshire and McAdoo weren't really in it to win it after their injuries. But the next best guy was Kitchen that night. It wasn't Pierce Brown. Was Pierce Brown even racing? I don't even think it was. But yeah, I just really like what I saw from Kitchen this weekend. I know he didn't quite get the starts, and if he can get the start, I'd be super interested. He's a top 5 guy right now, but the more and more that he can improve, the more and more he works on his starts, the more and more he puts it together, the better he'll get, and the faster he'll move to being a top 3 guy. I think he's there. This was only his 6th race in Supercross as a pro, and he already has a win under his belt. He had a really solid ride tonight, or I guess really solid ride this weekend and whatnot. So it was pretty cool. Then Pierce ends up passing back Levi Kitchen after Levi had passed him. So we talked about how Pierce Brown went down, got up with Levi right behind him. Levi made the pass, and then Pierce the next lap makes the pass back past him. And then Pierce Brown just I don't have a clip of it, but I can get it possibly. So if there's a clip on the screen right now, that's why, because I was able to go out and get it. But if not, he jumps towards the inside, and I don't know if he leaned or if the dirt's soft. It's Oakland. Everyone complained about the dirt being pretty soft and whatnot. So you saw him kind of just lose it, and that was on him. That's just completely on him once again. He just kind of slid out. So he slid out on that straight in front of the mechanics area after that triple single I was talking about after the finish line. So that is that. And then Jet wins by 16 seconds over RJ Hampshire, McAdoo in third, Kitchen, Brown, Lopes, and Voland. Kind of the top guys right now for sure. Oldenburg's there, but is he really there now? I mean, after the break, kind of is taking a little step back from the momentum he was carrying around. So, in my opinion, but head into the 450 main. I know you guys might have wanted to see this, so go ahead and talk about it. Sexton, Webb, Tomac, all start top 3. There's a theme going on in the 250 main event. It was the top 3 guys in the championship at the top 3. Out of the start. And then in this one, it was Webb, Tomac, and Sexton, so it was really fun to see. And then Kenny and Anderson, both off to good starts, going 4th and 5th. With Kenny in 4th, he looked really solid early. And then Tomac passed Webb early. And then we saw Webb didn't get desperate, but he wanted to see where he stood. So he goes, what? Pulls a quad out of nowhere. It was so cool to see that quad come into effect. He's so good. He's so good at finding lines like that. No one else even thought about it. And so he just quads over that, shows him back a front wheel. And it was interesting to see, of course. And then the top 3 separate. So it was Sexton, Tomac, and Webb all out early, and they all separated about a second from each other. So it's a little spread out, and you didn't really get to see who was going to be faster than who. And then Chase jumping the whoops ended up being slower than Eli skimming. Like I mentioned earlier, Eli's bike setup is just so good, and the way that Chase had to jump, it was screwing him over because he wasn't so used to it. He's skimming all heat long. I'm guessing he only watched the 250 main and had to kind of base it off that. But we saw Tomac skimming, and it was continuously faster. And then Barsha had a dumb incident with Nichols. Probably didn't have to do that to him. I mean, it should be on your screen right now if it is, and I'm sorry, but just took Nichols off the track pretty much. It's not called for. It's just not. So, I mean, it is what it is, and, it's not great. But Craig in 7th with 4 minutes in, and then funneled back to 9th when, I forgot who it was, but 2 guys passed him. I think it might have been Jason, or no, it might have been Barsha and someone else, but I can't remember. But there were definitely 2 guys that was faster than Craig. So 7th was like, oh my god, Christian Craig's 7th. What can he do with it? And then 4 minutes or 2 minutes later, whatever it was, slides back to 9th quickly, and you kind of had no gauging on that. So Barsha, it was Barsha and Adam Cianciarillo that passed Craig, put him back to 9th. But Barsha had some really good speed early. He looked pretty good. I'm not going to lie. I hate to say it. He looked good. And then another takeout. Took another victim. It wasn't just Colton Nichols tonight. It was Adam Cianciarillo. Gave him no track to work with. It was so stupid. I hated that move. It's stupid. It's just dumb. He had an interview before the race, and I don't know. It was very misleading, I guess. No comment on that. Tomac switches to jumping the whoops about 7 minutes in. They started to get pretty bad, and then that's kind of when Webb fell off the pace. He was already off the pace. He was like 8 seconds back or so, 8.6, something like that, 6.8 maybe. Just fell off the pace. And then Eli kind of realized what was happening. He's kind of, okay, I'm going to have to start jumping. I'm going to have to slowly chip away time on Chase by doing something different. And it wasn't jumping them. Jumping the whoops probably wasn't Tomac's best bet. But to stay up on two wheels, it probably was. But yeah, Barsha and Jason Anderson and Kenny all 5th, 6th, and 7th, and all within 3 seconds. It was good middle of the pack battle late in the race. And then all this while Plessinger is quietly just sitting in 4th place. I thought that was just a really good ride from Plessinger, and I'm sure when he gets the opportunity, he'll be a little bit better. And when he gets that start, we might see him run with the top 3 guys and maybe settle in, maybe find a lock on to a Cooper Webb pace, because it feels like the most achievable. Honestly, at this point, Tomac and Sexton are just kind of on another level early in a race. It's kind of crazy what they've been doing. But if we finally get maybe one short whoop section in a race, maybe we'll see the KTM guys really start to figure it out. But we had 2 pain in the ass whoop sections tonight, and it was really hard to see. But yeah, it was solid to see Plessinger kind of continue to carry a little bit more momentum. He didn't start all that great. I think he passed 2 people to get into that 4th place spot, so it wasn't bad. Kenny looked really good. He kind of settled in 5th and started to kind of branch out from Jason Anderson and Justin Barsha. Kind of was just moving along, doing his own thing, holding his own pace, and I think the whoops kind of adapted to him and him not being able to hit him. That Suzuki looked horrible through the whoops late in every main event this year so far. So it was nice to see him up in 5th. And then something I do want to hit on. Joey Savacci. Factory ride guy? Hell yes. This guy, give him a gas contract. I guarantee you he top 5s once in a season. I guarantee you top 5s twice in a season, actually. And then give him maybe 1 podium in the first 2 years he's on a gas, and then he can build off that. He's still young enough. He's probably like 27, somewhere around there. He's still pretty young. And as long as you're giving out contracts to Justin Barsha, hand one out to Joey Savacci. Maybe Pro or KTM or Kawasaki, someone can give Savacci a chance. The guy is good. The guy is great. I think that he is very, very underrated, severely. He's on Joe Gibbs or whatever racing with Moto Summit as his top sponsor, something like that. And he is ripping guys up in 9th and 8th place. In this stacked of a class, 9th and 8th place is huge. On a guy that is not on a factory ride that is consistently in the top 10. And imagine what he can do with a factory team behind him. Give him a fill-in ride on HRC. He deserved it more than Colton Nichols. Maybe not deserves the right word, but at this point, yes, I think Savacci would have been the better fit for HRC Honda, but he really says how much he loves the Kawasaki. Had a chance to be on the Suzuki team. Didn't end up taking it, so yeah, whatever. It is what it is. Sexton was 5 seconds ahead. Had a scary moment on that Dragon spec. You guys should be seeing it on your screen right now. And I apologize if you guys don't see as many highlights as I, whatever. But yeah, Sexton, very sketchy moment. You hate to see it. And it doesn't quite go over the bars, but it looked damn close. He gets about really squirrely. His back wheel is all the way out left, I think, and then lands. And then he started jumping the Dragon's back from then on. He knew it was slower, and in my opinion, probably shouldn't have done it. But, I mean, at this point, if you're Chase Sexton, you just got to do anything you can to finish in that number 1 spot for sure. And very, 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 very quickly after that, he has that massive mistake. 1, 2, 3 corners later, and or I guess 4. No, it's still 3. And then, so like we talked about, it was that after finish line, the triple single, he goes triple in. He said he did the same exact thing 3 laps ahead. We'll get into that a little bit, but jumps in, basically does a 360. There's no getting into it. He leans the bike a little bit forward, and he still leaned a little bit right. But he said he did the same thing, and I don't doubt it. So he goes in, and he kind of compresses that front. While the dirt's so slippery, his front's probably already like this, and then to put pressure on it, and then to still be leaning the way, the tire can't grip all of that all the time. So the tire's going to start eventually sliding out, and then I don't think he ever braked. I watched both of his wheels, and they still were moving, and then kind of just like leaned into it. And that's what kind of spun him around a little bit and does nearly a 360. And yeah, it was, I said he leaned a little too far forward on a slippery surface, and I just elaborated a little bit more on that. But yeah, is Chase Sexton happy on a Honda? It comes down to that. He says things. I mean, he said a few things this year that's kind of like he's not happy with the bike setup or something like that. So he kind of says some misleading things about being happy where he's at. And I think that he's really going to look to move on from Honda. As much as I hate to say it, Honda's probably my favorite team, especially right now. They have been for a while since probably the addition of Kenny back in the day. I mean, they've been so good to so many guys. And then Chase to continuously say the same thing. I did the same thing the lap previous. He said that like 7,000 times. And it was actually about 4 times. But it's just, I mean, he doesn't sound happy. I'll put it that way. He does not sound happy on Honda. And then and Webb in the press conference said he saw Sexton and that gave him a spark. So we all know that what that leads to. Webb getting a spark late in a race, that's rough, man. Sexton slows down, plays it a little too safe in my opinion. Probably should have kept going on that Dragon's back. I think Eli Tomac was still doing it. And then Sexton or Webb actually had a really fast line. He was going like triple, and then we saw this from what was it, Hunter Lawrence in Tampa, where he was skipping that top whoop in the Dragon's back, and it would stay so much lower, and you could stay so much closer to the next landing, and so you could set up way better for the corner. And so that's kind of what Cooper Webb is doing. He's either barely skimming it or just jumping over it in general. I'm not sure how long he was doing it, but yeah, it was bad. It was bad because it is what it is, and Sexton just slowed down way too much. Webb started to gain. Webb kind of hit his stride pretty late in the race, actually. And then all of a sudden we see Roxon slow down. He's in like 8th or 9th or something. He's down in the pack. And after seeing him in 5th the whole race, and then just to see him slowly go down to 8th, it's like, what? And then I'll talk about the solid group 9th through 13th. Savacci, Colt Nichols, Justin Cooper, Adam Cianciarulo, and Dean Wilson. Not quite in that order. I think Cianciarulo and Wilson were flipped around. Very solid group in 9th and 13th. To have a guy like Savacci, Colt Nichols, factory. Justin Cooper, factory. Dean Wilson was factory for so long. Adam Cianciarulo, factory riders. That is the deal in this class. The top 13 to 15 is scary. Scary good. Probably shouldn't have just itched my neck. I'm way too white for that. It's going to show up all red and stuff. But yeah, I don't know. You got such a different thing going on here with this year compared to years previous. These last 2 years, the 450 class has been absolutely stacked. And where does that put the 250 guys? These 250 guys that are going to be moving up here. Jetson Lawrence is moving to the 450s. Slides everyone back a slot. It's crazy. It is crazy. It is absurd. It is nasty. And then we'll talk about this. Webb starts to close in with about within a second of Sexton. Then uses that massive quad line we saw. I really love this quad line. Goes quad, triple, and I think goes on-off single into the corner. So it's really exciting to see. Gets to the inside of Sexton. Absolutely blows his doors off on the exit of that corner. Really fun to see. And then Tomac cruising out front about 4.3 seconds ahead. And then has a scare on the final lap. So everyone's saying he's soaring in. He's going to get that record 48. He's going to tie Ricky Carmichael for all-time wins. Does a little double in. And what that happened was in this little, they were single doubling in this section that he went and had a little mistake in. So they were singling. And at the bottom of that, from all the acceleration to get that double, there's a hole at the bottom of it. So what a lot of guys were doing was over jumping. So they'd go inside and then like over jump and not case, but kind of face and jump off of that to get the double. And so a lot of guys were doing that. And then you saw guys kind of jump over. I saw Chase Sexton is my best example of this. Jump over the hole and then go bop and then kind of bounce in the air and then accelerated and then doubled into the corner again. And so that's what kind of Tomac was doing as well. So he kind of jumped and then his front was already too far down, relied on it a little too much even, and just ended up not going down, but was damn close, went flying off the track. Not flying, kind of rolled off the track after having a pretty gnarly a close call there. And then Webb closed within 2 seconds. Tomac had a little bobble in the whoop section as well. And yeah, Tomac held on, won that one, despite Coop using the Coop lines, of course. And I don't know. I'm gonna really show you guys, or to get in depth here with the strengths of the line that Cooper was using and the lines that Cooper was using really. And I'm gonna talk about the skipping the top of the dragon's back and the quad. So basically, the dragon's back, you'd go. What guys were doing were jumping. You go boom, boom, and then you jump. Right, so you'd still have another lift off at the top, but what Webb was doing was jumping, going boom, boom, and over instead of going boom, 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 bounce. So he was going boom, boom, over, and it was so low, so close. I mean, it is cool. It is cool. Just to see how much of a difference, a different brain that Cooper Webb has up there. It's just so gnarly the way that this guy thinks during a race. It is incredible to see how quick he is on that bike. It is incredible to see how he can adapt to a track so well. And then that quad, using it from start to finish and absolutely launching. I mean, it is crazy to see. That line was, to me, not a lot faster, but 0.2 seconds or so faster a lap whenever he used it. So whatever. Cooper is just such a special rider, and I kind of just wanted to show some emphasis on that and really get in depth with what he was doing differently on this track. But that's all for me about this little race recap thing we got going on here. And let's go ahead and hit the outro. I'll see you guys next time. Make sure to subscribe. Make sure to consider liking. Make sure to, I don't know, consider a bunch of things. But liking and subscribing to this channel and this video is most important up there. So that'll be all for me. Thank you guys for watching. I will have to see you guys next time. Hopefully you guys enjoyed, and hopefully you guys can continue watching and grow on this channel with me. See you guys.